what do you think separates the leaders who get things done from the ones who don't?
When you meet people, you can quite quickly sort of get that feeling from them.
What makes you say that you're successful?
For me, to be successful is
Hi, I am Melon and co-founder here at the Melon Studio and founder of Olivia Pearls. We have been telling stories since 2009, but this time we don't just want to tell stories, we want to amplify them. Welcome to the Louder Podcast. Today's guest has spent 50 years building the foundations of other people's futures, literally. Trevor Stott Briggs has worked in 34 countries across the globe, from energy and infrastructure projects with the World Bank and ADB to major construction and development deals in the Gulf, Asia, and Africa. But after a life altering rugby injury left him temporarily paralyzed, Trevor had to do something he never planned for: rebuild himself. He did it with humor, grace, and a pen in hand. He's the author of Don't Stop Believin' and All Lies in Trapperland. The books are here in front of us. And he's here today with stories you won't believe, but also lessons we all need to hear. Let's get into it.
Hi there,
Hi.
Melon. Thank you
Hello.
very much for inviting me. It's wonderful to be in a podcast. It's not my podcast, it's your podcast, but this is my first time in an actual podcast. So I guess I'm a real person now.
I feel super special. This is your first guesting, so I'm so privileged to have you here because I feel your story is it should be told 1,000 times. People need to hear this.
It's funny because you start off your life very simply and you don't think of the things that may happen to you in the future or any impacts you may have on other people. But if you can, in some strange or even small ways, it's a really nice feeling at the end of it. I mean, I started my life in post-war Britain in 1949. I was born. When there was rationing, we lived in a very small house. My dad was a truck driver, and that was it. And you think, is this going to be my life? Living in this. This was a northern, what they called them, northern mill town in the north of England in Lancashire, where they made all the cotton spinning and cotton weaving for shirts and stuff like that at the time. And so you start off and you think, well, this is going to be your life, but it didn't turn out that way, and I'm kind of glad it did change. I wouldn't wish an accident on anyone to make an impact on their lives, but that does change things for you. But before that, I did a lot of other things too.
But before we get to the highlight, the book and the injury, you've had one of the most global careers I've ever seen. 34 countries
Yeah.
and massive projects, big names, billion-dollar deals. If you had to pick one lesson the world of infrastructure taught you about life, what would it be?
Well, there are a lot of people who don't appreciate what we have here, for instance, either here in the UAE or in UK or the Philippines, because you kind of take that for granted. There's a road, there's water supply, there's electricity, but there are an incredible number of people out there that have none of those things. There are parts of the Philippines where they don't have it. There are huge parts of Africa that don't have it, huge parts of Asia and Southeast Asia that don't have the things that we take for granted. And a lot of the projects I've done, when I look back on them, have been to change that, to give people water supply, or to help them build a house, or provide finance to build a house, to provide some sort of sanitation, to provide a road or an access to wherever they were going. And that's a nice feeling when you can think, yeah, I did that. Yeah, that was a great project. I did that project in India, or I did that project in the Philippines, or wherever it was. And as you say, I've worked in a lot of countries, so there's quite a wide range of projects. But it is a nice feeling to think that you were able to do that for a number of people. And I'm doing something now that's a little bit different too, with a young guy from Africa. Simple thing. I met him and at a conference in Sharjah actually, and I was a speaker on sustainability, and we started talking afterwards, and it turned out he had a very simple thing. He had a backpack like every kid at school, and he managed to find a way to build a very small solar powered light to go in the back of this backpack,
Oh,
so
nice.
the kid could walk to school with the thing on their back, and it would charge the lamp.
Mm,
And then when they were going home at night, they had a light to do their homework.
amazing.
Now, if you
Mm.
think of that, I mean, how many distant parts in many countries, particularly in Africa, he started it in Africa. Kids go home and they can't do their homework because they have no light, or they're doing it by candlelight, or he has pictures of them doing it on the street. So we're trying to bring that out and involve more people, involve charitable organizations, and do it as an entrepreneurial thing so that people can actually make the lamps and make the
Mm.
backpacks, so they get employed in doing something good, and then you give them to kids. And I mean, and then you can put you can put one of these things on top of a Coke bottle, and it's a lamp on a table.
Correct.
Very
Yeah.
cheap, very simple, but it makes a huge difference. So that's something I'm working on currently. So there's
Mm.
something in me somewhere, I guess, that wants to do things. Yeah.
So I think you've picked up lessons from every country or culture that you have worked
Well,
in.
you do, I mean, it is not, yeah. I mean, here we have 200 different nationalities in the UAE, and
Mm.
that's phenomenal. And working in all those countries, you realize that every culture has something. It might be a different religion, maybe a different kind of
Mm.
food, different kind of way of doing things, a different way of dressing, different, all sorts of things, culturally totally different. But it's when you can absorb those, and sometimes it's good, you can swap something smart in one country for something that isn't working in another,
Yeah.
and that cross pollination of ideas is important. So it's nice when you have a whole bunch of ideas in your head and you can go, yeah, we could do
You can
that.
actually write another whole book on that.
I could write a whole book. Yes, 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 I could.
You left rainy Lancashire.
Yes.
How do I say? Did I say it right?
Lancashire, yeah.
Lancashire.
The ire isn't so much; it's a sh. It's
Sure,
like, yeah,
Lancashire.
like Cheshire, yeah.
And never look back. What year? Talk to us about that. What year did you? And then you never look back. And then, how? Tell us that journey.
It was 1976 when I actually left, March the 1st, 1976. And I'd been to university, I'd been working, and I'd done some projects. I was working in local government, actually, building drainage and sewerage and sanitation back
Mm.
in Lancashire. Um, and then I thought, okay, I've done this, and I'd done my chartered status, to become a chartered engineer. So I thought I need just to take a break. So I hooked up with some guys in a Land Rover who wanted to drive across Africa, which you could do at that time. I mean, you couldn't probably do it now
Yeah.
with all sorts of political and geopolitical things going on. But back in 1976, you could do it. So four of us set off in a Land Rover, and we drove. We drove first of all across Europe, and then into Algiers, and then across the Sahara Desert into Niger, and then all the way through. And I ended up in Kenya. And then when I got to Kenya, there was a small company there who wanted someone to be the project engineer for a water supply project in a place called Lake Naivasha, which has lots of flamingos. And so he said, "Oh, it's 6 months job. If there's no more work after 6 months, that's it." But, okay, I took it. I ended up staying there 6.5 years. And then the next opportunity was Asia. I somehow found out that it turned out that, of course, the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank were doing lots of projects in the Philippines, and that kind of excited me. And so I took a job with a British consulting firm and moved to the Philippines, and ended up being there for 27 years, I think.
To how many? 20.
27,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
wow.
Sometimes I ask, when you meet a Filipino here, you say, a young Filipino might be working in the hospital or in the hotel, and you say, Where are you from? Oh, I'm from the Philippines. And then you say, I bet I've been in the Philippines longer than you have. Oh, they look at you, and then they say, how old are you? Oh, I'm 25, sir. And then you go, okay,
I've
I was
been
there 27 years, you know.
exactly. I left the Philippines when I was 24, so that means you've been in the
Yeah,
Philippines.
exactly. I've lived in your country longer than longer than you. Yeah, but it's a great country, you know. So
Exactly. That's fun. So what really drove you?
well, it was funny. I had there was a girlfriend of a friend of mine, and we were talking one day, and I'd done some things. I'd bought a house. I bought my first house for £70, which is 350 dirhams. Can you
Oh
believe?
wow,
Yeah,
350 dirham.
I bought a house for 350
Where
dirhams.
is the?
This was in Lancashire. Okay,
Oh wow.
and then I converted it inside. So from the outside, it looked like a normal terraced house. Have you ever seen Coronation Street? The
No,
TV
no.
people watch it.
What is this coronation?
Coronation Street. It's a TV series in UK about very ordinary people
Ah, okay.
living in the north of England. Anyway, so from the outside it looked normal, but I sort of did all sorts of things inside. And then I thought, okay, what can I do now? So I decided to build a car. So I built a car. It was like one of these things where you the engine and the chassis and the kit and all of the things. So I built a car. That took about a year. And then this girl one day said to me, she said, Trevor, you're not for here. You should be somewhere else. And I thought, yeah, maybe I should. And the one going back a step, when I was at school, I was about 14. We didn't have careers masters then. There was a teacher, and his name was Mr. Tempest, and he took surveying. The choice that for me, age 14, was: do you want to do biology and cut up frogs, or do you want to do surveying? Which is the thing you do with the theodolite, looking when you want to draw a plan. And so one day he went round the room and he said, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And he was asking everyone in the class. And he said, "What do you want to be, Briggs?" And I said, "Oh, I want to be an architect, sir." And he said, "Oh, don't do that." He said, "Because if you're an architect in this little town," he said, "all you do is outhouses, gardens, bathroom conversions." He said, "If you're an engineer, you can go anywhere in the world and you can build roads and bridges and things." And it wasn't the building the roads and bridges, it was the going anywhere in the
The
world
world that
that got
that.
me. And so when this girl just sort of said, and I was at a particular point, I was 26, and she said, "You're not for here. You should go somewhere else." And I thought, yeah. So that's when I took the overland trip, and that started my journey
So
beyond the shores.
you wanted to see the world.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster. That's- You've worked with government, global banks, a lot of CEOs. What do you think separates the leaders who get things done from the ones who don't?
It's interesting when you meet people, you can quite quickly sort of get that feeling from them, because some people want to do things for their company, which then benefit people outside of the company and the average man in the street, which is the things that the World Bank and Asian Development Bank and that sort of company did all the time. And other people are only interested in doing something to make money for themselves. And there's a lot of politics around that at the moment, all sorts of things. So, when you find someone that actually says, I have this idea, I have this vision, I want to do this, and it's not just for them. They don't think about them first. They think about what the impact that can have, and they're great people to work for, and they can be all loads of different nationalities. I mean, I've worked for British bosses, American bosses, Australian bosses, Filipino bosses, Emirati, Egyptian. I've had lots of different bosses in my life, in my career, but when you hit on one that just has that something, it's a spark,
Spark,
you can,
yes.
and it makes you feel good because they then let you do things. When you go to them with an idea and say, "Hey, what about doing this?" And they go, "Yeah, okay, we can do that." And it's other people saying, "No, that won't work. There's no money in it for me." So it makes a
Interesting.
difference.
Exactly. I was just talking to someone about this, that what drives you and what makes you say that you're successful.
for me to be
Yeah.
successful is to to do something, to achieve something. It may be that you're sitting at a laptop 7 or 8 hours a day, because since my accident my mobility isn't great, and Agnes, my wife, is always saying, you got to walk, you got to walk more, you must, you must do this, you must exercise more. And yes, you do, you do need to do that, and I'll hold my hand up, I don't do it enough. But if you're sitting there and you have an idea, and then you can put a presentation together, and start something, and it might take a long time, it might be very quick, you don't know. I have something I'm running with now for, we're calling it an active lifestyle community village, which is for people who not necessarily are retired, not necessarily have any mobility issues or any disabilities, but somewhere where people can live maybe from the age of 45 to 50, or the kids can live, which is a place where they want to be, not a place like an old people's home. So I'm working on that project too. This is, if talking to people about getting finance, finding some land to do it in the Philippines, of course. So, it's those sort of things that inspire you.
Yes. Now let's talk about the moment your life changed. You broke your neck playing rugby, but at 62, I
Yes.
feel that you have like you're full of life. Imagine at 62 you're playing rugby. What was the first thing that went through your mind, and what did the world suddenly look like when everything stopped moving?
It's weird, people talk about out of body experiences.
Mm.
Uh, and you go, I died and, came back to life. I have no idea, but what happened was I was on the rugby pitch, and it was like the last minute of the game, and I was what they call the hooker in the middle of the scrum. You're in the middle of 8 people, 8 on your side and 8 on the other side, pushing against each other, and the ground was slippy, and the guys who were holding me up slipped, and we fell down, and it pushed my head onto the ground, and that's what broke my neck. And I obviously I must have passed out, but what it felt like was that I was laid on the ground, and I was up here,
Look.
above me, like a drone, looking down on myself. Yeah, laid there, and it was completely silent. Couldn't hear anything.
Mm.
I could just see myself, and and then this is how I felt about it. All of a sudden, there was kind of a whoosh, and I was laid there, and then I could hear people talking. They said, "Trevor, are you okay? Can you feel anything?" And luckily, there was a guy who was one of our trainers. He understood that don't move him because something's happened, and he said, "Can you move your fingers?" And my arms were burning. I mean, like burning from the inside out. And I said, my arms and my hands are burning. And he said, can you move your finger? And I couldn't move anything. He said, can you move your toes? I couldn't move anything. So he then called the ambulance and the medics, and they came over and put me on a board, and a brace around my neck, and then they took me to hospital for to have an MRI and an X-ray and all of
Mm.
those things. So that was the moment when it changed, and you tend to think at first that, oh, well, it's going to be quick, I'll be okay, it'll just go. But, it's taken a long time. I still have things that, as a result of that, my mobility isn't as good. One leg is good, one leg is not. One hand is good, the other hand is not as good, and so on. And of course, I can't move my neck fully. I have a brace, a titanium brace, in across 5 of the vertebrae in my neck, so that I can still do that, but not fully. But the best thing about that, I mean, people say, "Oh, terrible to have an accident." The best thing that you could want out of it is that your brain still works, and your eyes and your mouth.
Mouth,
So your
yes.
senses,
Yes.
in terms of communication, still work.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it heightens the brain functions. I mean, you could say, "Oh, yeah, Trevor just talks a lot," uh, but you end up having to remember things because you can't go back and look for it, because yeah, it's a hard work to walk over there. So you remember a lot of things that you wouldn't normally, and your perception of things changes. Logistics, all sorts of things change. But being able to communicate, I mean, like we're sitting here in a podcast. I mean, who would have known? Yeah, because some people have a stroke, or some people have an accident like I have, and they can't talk. Yeah,
Correct.
they may be still
Yeah,
functioning inside their
correct.
head, but if they can't say what they want, it's like a baby.
So yeah, they
Can't,
slur.
it's
Yeah,
terrible. It's
yeah.
very difficult. So, I'm really thankful that I can do that. It's like writing the books, just talking to people generally. I mean, I spend a lot of time on the phone, spend a lot of time sending emails and et cetera, et cetera. And being able to communicate and think and see, so important. If you to give up something, okay, don't give that up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you said, I'm not disabled. I'm temporarily unable to do a few things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. There's so much positivity in there. How did you keep your mindset strong when your body was failing you? And what can people learn from that, even if they're not going through something physical?
Well, that was the part of the reason for the book
Mm-hmm.
and the title, The Don't Stop Believing. And the Don't Stop Believing bit of it comes from the song
Yes.
by
Oh,
Journey, Don't Stop Believing. I'm just a poor, small town girl coming from a,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. I'm just a kid from Detroit. And I mean, the nice thing about that, I mean, I've known that song for many years. And of course, now you have a Filipino, Arnel Pineda, as the singer for Journey. And his life story, I mean,
Yeah.
he was a street kid, stealing this, running around, sleeping in the park. And then one day, somebody from the actual Journey heard something on YouTube, heard him singing. And his voice was like the original Journey singer, so close. So, and just the idea of that, because like the neurosurgeon I had that did the operation on my neck, he said, I can fix your neck. I can physically fix your neck so it works. Yeah. He said, and I can do whatever we can do with your neurological system, but there's a limit on that. He said, but the most important thing for your recovery, he said, it's not what I can do. He said, it's in your head. He said, if you want to recover and you want to do something, you will do it. And that stuck with
Yeah,
me,
stuck with you.
because it's
Yeah.
very, I
That's,
mean, yeah, think I can do it,
yeah.
I can do it. As soon as you think you can't do it,
How did you keep reminding yourself that? How did you keep that in mind?
I love music, and I've always loved music from being very young. I actually saw the Beatles, Paul McCartney and the Beatles, when I was 14, in July 1963. In a big ballroom, and they'd just released their first record. So from being the age of 14, I loved music, and when I was laying in my room in the hospital and in the rehabilitation center, you listen to a lot of music because the radio's playing all the time, etc. And what I found was that the music was very inspirational in many ways, and music has such an emotional thing with people. I mean, it instantly reminds you of something. Oh, that was the music that was playing when I met my wife, or we did this. That was something that, and it's amazing how it triggers. Yeah. So I'm laying in bed, not being able to do anything for like 2 years, whilst I was doing the physiotherapy, but listening to the radio every day, and so that's you suddenly start thinking, and the don't stop believing thing, and all this inspirational music, and that's why I've blended the music into the book through the QR codes inside the book.
Yes.
Every page, almost, not every, but
I will show it quickly. Like there's QR codes here. This is the book, and then like there are QR codes here.
and they're either music,
Music.
mainly music, or to a film clip or a TV clip.
There's also photos.
Lots of photos. My wife Agnes is very good at taking pictures, so
That's
I mean,
you.
this is me, yeah, with the brace on
the
my
brace
neck.
on the accident.
Yeah. So she took lots and lots of pictures, so we use them all the way through. That was
Okay.
people raising money by having a
Very.
competition.
It,
So the music, really does something for you. And I think actually there's about 5 versions of Don't Stop Believing in there. And Agnes has actually had lunch with Arnel Pineda as a result
oh,
of it.
really?
Yeah, yeah. She
Oh, wow.
one time, yeah. There's a
Because
picture
of
in
the
the.
book.
It's in the back of the book. Yeah,
And you had lunch because of the you had lunch
yes,
with her because
yes,
of the
yeah,
book.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, those kind of things, you go, I can do this, and this music is so inspirational. And if you can do that, if it's inspirational to me, it should be the same for someone else. That was the idea.
So your storytelling became your way through this
Yeah,
trial.
it's also very cathartic, to get out of your system, get out, you go, writing it down, writing a book about it is actually, it's very healing, mentally healing. Yeah. Because as you say, it is easy to get depressed and say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But writing it down makes a big difference.
What did you discover about yourself while writing? Because you mentioned a while back before we started recording, it took you 2 years to finish.
Yeah, yeah.
Quite a
Well,
journey, yeah.
well, there had to be a time when I didn't do anything. Although right at the beginning, when I was first in hospital, I said, "Oh, I'm going to write a book about this," to people who came to see me in hospital, and everybody went, "Yeah, sure, yeah, Trevor, of course, yeah, you're going to write a book about it," because I'd never written a book before. I wasn't an author, so everybody went, "Yeah, right, sure." But then, of course, it takes a time to go through the process of getting somewhere. People said, "Oh, have you written that book yet?" So it takes a few years to get to a point where you think, "Okay, now I can start telling the story because now I can see where this is going."
Mhm.
And from that point on, then it took me about 2 years to write it because the process of finding getting the music, finding the bits, getting the
Mhm.
photograph, putting it all together, and writing the story does take a long time. I would find actually it used to take me about 2 hours to write a page, which sounds an incredibly long time, yeah.
Mm.
But I did my best work sort of between about 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. I tended to. I don't know
Exactly.
why. That was my time when no one was messing around. The kids were gone to bed. Everybody's quiet. No one's phoning me up, not doing anything, and you could just. Yeah,
Most people would have already retired quietly if they have experienced, that same situation. But you wrote books and you built a blog too.
yeah, yes.
And then you started speaking about it. What makes what makes you keep saying yes?
What to doing different things.
Yeah, what makes keep you saying yes to life?
Well, it's very strange when I look back at my childhood and youth back in this northern Lancashire, um, because most of the people in that area worked in the factories, yeah.
Mm.
But what happened is the women would retire at age 60 usually, and the men would retire at 65. But then they would go home, and they generally had no hobbies and nothing to do, so they would sit at home and read the paper or watch the television. Now, going back to 1959, 1960,
Yes.
television was a
Ev-
tiny little screen.
Even in the Philippines, there's still a lot of those.
Yeah, but what would happen is a lot of the men w- would would uh, would die within about a year. Yeah, the
Mhm.
women didn't because the women had to look after the house. They had to do the washing. They had to cook the food. So they had something that was driving
Mhm.
them. Okay, so what I think is if you're still doing things, if you're still making your brain work, the rest of you will work too, because your brain is saying, okay, I need to do this plan, or I need to do this presentation, or I need to call somebody up, or I need to be working, and so I've I'm still working. I'm 76, but I'm still doing things because I think it's important. If you just,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, sure, I like to watch a movie and I like to watch TV, but if you only do that, I think you very quickly you'll fade away.
Right. What's something you wish someone told you when you were 30? Now that you live, is it 75 or
76, yeah.
76? What's something you wish someone told you when you were 30?
You mean, should I have, had I known what I know now when I was 30?
Would you want someone to have told you that, or
Very, very difficult. I think probably the most important thing was the thing I mentioned earlier about this girl who said, "You're not for here. You know, this is not your life. You should be somewhere else." So that was the funny thing is, after something, she went off to university and I went and did my thing, and she got married and blah blah blah. I only just found quote unquote on Facebook about a month or so ago, and so we've suddenly started communicating again. And she's still living in UK. She's still married, got two or three kids, and all of this thing. But it was really funny to talk to her and say, it's all your fault because you told me I shouldn't stay here in Nelson. I should go somewhere else. And she said, so it was kind of fun conversation. And one of the other things was she was an incredibly avid reader. And she always told me, "Oh, you have to read books. Oh, you should read Lord of the Rings, or you should read this, or you should read that." And I used to go, "Yeah, okay." So I did. And so it was kind of nice to go back and talk to her after 40 something years and say, "By the way, I wrote a couple of books." So I read a lot, but I also wrote some too. Oh, okay.
and like
Kind of
those
nice.
things that we don't know we're going to do
Things you don't know.
someday,
Things you don't
right?
know, yeah.
What do you think people completely underestimate about life in their 60s, 70s?
I don't think it I don't think it necessarily changes, Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you may slow down. Yeah, I know. I have to think ahead when I'm doing things. I need more time. It takes me longer to get dressed, or it takes me longer to have a shower or go to the bathroom, and so on and so forth. But if you can bear that in mind, you can still do many of the things that you could do when you were younger. Yes, it may take longer, but it's worth it. It's still worth it. I recently I was trying to redesign some houses for what you call a budget housing development in the Philippines, and somebody had designed them but hadn't really thought about it. They just there's a bedroom, there's a bathroom. I mean, there was one house, believe it or not, it was a house. It was a three-bedroom house, and you know how important food is in the Philippines, right? The kitchen was under the stairs, and it was a sink and a space for a refrigerator. That was the kitchen. So I looked at this and thought, three bedrooms, who's going to cook the food? Where are you going to make the food? Where are you going to prepare the food? Where are you going to eat the food? So, I mean, I had 2 weeks just redesigning these houses. I couldn't change the outside, but I could change anything inside. So they still look the same from the outside, but I changed everything inside and made them what both Agnes and I thought were much better, because she did an interior design course at Philippine School of Interior Design. I didn't do a course, but it's through the years I've done a lot of that stuff. So we look at plans and we go, that's not going to work. Why is that room there? Why isn't there this? I mean, we have fun doing that because she's in real estate too, and so the floor plan of a house is important. So that's the kind of thing I like doing. Then she turns around to me. She said, "You spent 2 weeks doing that." I said, "Yeah, but it's good. We can give it to the guys who are going to build it. It still looks the same, but it'll work. Now it'll work. Won't cost any more, but it works."
Your life is pretty much an adventure in itself. What what adventure ahead are you planning for?
Ahead, well, one of the things we're still involved in the real estate sort of business generally. Um, we're working with some people in the Philippines to do some developments there. And particularly, we've been looking at doing this active lifestyle community, because I know from my own experiences, if you have a house that doesn't work, if the cupboards are too high, or you can't, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get near to the sink, or the cooking stove is too high. Very simple things. Or you go in the bathroom and it's too small, yeah, and you can't turn around, yeah. So we've been working on that development. It was funny because I had the idea. This is one of the long-term ideas. 20 something years ago, about 20 years ago, in the Philippines, and before I came here, and there was this sort of workshop, and it was an entrepreneurial workshop, and there were about 12 of us went to this thing, and we're about 6 weeks into it, and at the end of it, everybody had to do a project, come up with a project, an entrepreneurial project. Okay, so we did, and we all had to then present them to an independent panel of they weren't experts, they were just people to look at it. So I had this idea for this, we then call it, retirement village. We've tried to drop the word retirement, but this is 20 years ago in the Philippines, remember. Now, the Philippine culture. Generally, the family is looked after by the younger ones
Yes,
at
yeah.
that time. Okay.
And some
that-
parts still do that.
In some parts still do that.
Yes.
Nowadays, that's different. The younger generation, Generation X, Z, Y, whatever they are, they want their own life. They want their own apartment. They've got their own job. They've got blah, blah, blah. So it's completely different. So when I did this presentation, everybody said, well, a nice idea, but why? Why do we need that? I said, it's a great place to have it. Fantastic weather, cost of living. You've got fantastic caregivers, fantastic nurses, and this and that. I said, perfect place to have it. And, but he said, yeah, but nobody needs that here. Okay. So that was 20 something years ago. Now, when I tell people about it, they all go, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a nice idea. Yeah. It would be wonderful, because my parents are getting older and this and that, people start thinking, how do we deal with this thing now? And another idea that was thrown up in that same thing, one of the other guys, young Filipino guy, he had this idea. He said, people are very busy these days. He said, so I think we should be able to deliver food and in some cases, ready prepared meals to their houses. They can ring up and they can
Yeah.
have food delivered. And everybody said, why would anyone in the Philippines want food delivered? Because we make,
Exactly.
I mean,
That's
look at it now.
now, exactly, yes.
Everybody goes, oh, Taliban. Oh, yeah, let's call up. Let's order the food.
Correct,
Yeah.
right?
He had that idea 20
Every-
years ago, and everybody
yes.
went, no, I don't get that. But that's the sort of thing. So
Times
it's
it
really
goes
interesting
fast.
when the clock turns around and things change geopolitically. People are living longer now. People are more mobile. I mean, globally more mobile. People from the US are quite happy to go to different places and etc. and live out their lives. So things have changed.
This other book,
The other,
you've written 2 books. This is your second book.
yeah.
What is the thread? What connects this book and that book? And why did you write this book?
There is no connection whatsoever.
Okay, no
apart from
connection.
I wrote it.
Okay.
Apart from the fact that I wrote it. No, that one is really
Show.
a satirical political parody. Yeah. I mean, for the American audience, they have this thing called Saturday Night Live, where they take fun of whatever happened to the politicians, and there's a whole bunch of late night comedy shows, talk shows in the US. And at that time, the UK was going through this whole thing about Brexit, about separating itself from the US. But it was going on for years, and it just wasn't going anywhere. It was really boring. So, but they had Boris Johnson, who was then the Prime Minister, and he's a kind of wild guy. I mean, he's blonde hair, and he was always tousled, and then he would go and talk to people, and he had these crazy ideas, and blah, blah, blah. He was very, and also they had Donald Trump. He was in his first
first
presidency.
presidency.
Okay, so these two characters, I mean, real characters. You go. And the things Donald Trump is doing now, don't get me started on that, in his second term. In the first term, it was COVID in that time, yeah? So it was like how can I match these two characters? Okay, so the idea was that the Alice in Wonderland. That's
Yes,
why
it
it's
does.
all,
It's very
all. It's a
whimsical.
pun, yeah, very whimsical, yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of Alice in Wonderland, it's all lies in Trumpaland. You know, it's like a pun.
Yes.
So the idea is that Boris Johnson, the then Prime Minister, falls down the rabbit hole and falls into Trumpaland, like Alice did, yeah? And
Mm.
so then he's there and he meets all these characters who come straight out of the Alice in Wonderland book.
Mm.
You know, there's Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, and there's the walrus, and there's all these characters. So what I tried to do with that book is to find things that two of them either said or did, and then somehow match that with parts of the story
Story
from
of
Alice in
Alice World.
Wonderland, yeah. And of course, at the end of it, there's a trial. You know, the Knave of Hearts stole the tarts, and all of these things. So there has to be a trial at the end of it. I don't want to give the story away. I'd like people to buy the book, but you know, that was the whole thing. So it was really great. It was a mental conundrum, you know, to say, okay, in the Alice in Wonderland, there's this character, and then what did he do? And then how can I make that character do something, you know, using current things that the two of them were doing? And so I spent a lot of time researching on the
Exactly.
internet, you
Yeah,
know,
there's yeah.
actual dialogues or actual things that they did, and then blended them into the book. So satirical
Such
political parody. So
but
it was really fun to write.
it's amazing that you've written two books, after the accident. You found how to publish them. You got, artworks designed. So
Yeah.
how did you
Well,
how
I
did
mean,
you
the
do
art, the
it?
artwork thing is kind of also amusing. They were actually both designed by a young girl in Islamabad, Pakistan.
Mm.
And the reason for that is that there's a website called 99 Designs, and it's like a competition, and they're young designers, and you put something on, you know, into the website, and you have to pay for that. And depending on what you want and what level of designer you want and what you want, whether it's a book or it's a business card, whatever it is, there's a different minimum amount. So, but that's the prize. Basically, you to offer a prize.
Yes,
So
correct.
then people, you know, they put it out on the website. So then all these young designers sort of send you things and say different cover, you know, different ideas for the cover. And at the end, you get to pick one, and then they win the prize. Yeah. And so then you work with them to fine tune the design, whatever it is. And so it's a really fun way of doing it, you know, because you get, instead of just saying to one designer, okay, this is what I want, and then you get their ideas, you're talking to 15 or 20 designers, and you get 3 or 4 ideas from each of them. So you may have 30 or 40 ideas. So it's a really great idea. And oh, this is a great idea. And you kind of mix some ideas up. It's a fun way of doing it. Yeah.
So
And it promotes entrepreneurial things because these young designers can then say, oh, I did the cover for that book. You know, so I think it helps them too. Yeah.
and did you self-publish?
I did that through the Amazon, through Kindle. It's the Amazon self-publishing thing,
Okay.
which works very well. It
Perfectly.
doesn't actually cost you anything, you know, and you can put it on the Amazon
Oh, this
website.
is both in Amazon then, and
Yeah,
available
yeah,
in
yeah,
Amazon.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
nice,
yeah.
cool. So you research all that by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, nobody else around me had done it, so it was like, oh, okay, how do I do this? And
Exactly, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
no, there was no author who gave you advice. This is what you should do. La, 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 like
No. It's very difficult when, particularly when you're writing something about yourself, you know, because that the first book is very personal. Um, so it was just a case of how can I do this, um, and you know, what's the thread? How do you start it off? I did help. Subsequently, I helped another guy here in Dubai, another British guy, and he'd written a book, and there's a series of books about a character called Wilt, who was a really crazy guy and
it's a
a
fiction
fiction book.
book.
And so he'd written this book about being an air traffic controller and you know planes crashing and all sorts of things. Yeah, and he said, "Can you come and just read the book and see what it is?" And it was actually started off like a personal book from him, but the trouble was you could tell that. in the beginning. So I sort of gave him some advice of how to make it look like it was a crazy book about some crazy character, but it wasn't him. It was based on his experiences, you know. But
It's a fictional, but not really fictional
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's his
yeah,
like it's his experience. He
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. And to
and
make
now you're helping him
and to make
probably.
it funny, you know, to make it funny. Yeah, I mean, he said he started off the book talking about how these two planes came across the sky, and he was at the control, and he was looking at the radar, and they just about missed, and all of this, and it got really, really technical, and that was the first chapter. And by the time, you know, I read it, and I said, "You lost me in you know, a few pages in." He said, because then the character was ran home, raced home, because his wife had promised him that they would sleep together for some reason. That was his day to have intimacy with his wife. So he rushes home, yeah. But going up the stairs, you know, his trousers fall down, and you know, then the kids come out of the bedroom. And I said, that's the thing you have to start off with. Don't start off with all the stuff about having a bad day. Start off with the guy running up the stairs and his trousers falling down, and then the kid comes out of the bedroom and says, "Dad, what are you doing?" And Mum's in the bedroom waiting for Dad. It goes, nothing happens, and then you can go back and say, you know,
Go
earlier
back
that day, you
exactly.
know. And
Amazing, huh?
so
I'm actually also like started writing a book, but I'm like procrastinating. But this is great. Is it? And with that prior experience, you're now giving advice to
yeah, but
like
hey, you know, when you read something, if it grabs you on the first few pages, that's the important thing. You know, if somebody said, you know, like me with that book, you know, it opens and it's like, you know, the first line is stop pushing so fucking hard, you know, because these guys were pushing, and I actually said stop pushing so hard.
that's the
But of
beginning.
course, you don't. In a rugby game of rugby, that's what you're doing, and
Yeah.
so you know. But that was the way to start the book for me, yeah. And so that's when I was giving this guy advice, and you know, he finished the book and he wrote it and he published it and it came out, and you know, he was very happy with it. So it was nice to be able to do that. Just a perspective of how to write, you know, and it was really just moving things around. Just start with the funny, yeah. Start with the crazy, you know,
That's a
the,
great
the
tip.
the
Yeah.
guy the guy's going home expecting to make love to his wife, and it doesn't it doesn't happen because he's had a really bad day, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's a great tip, though. I'll
yeah.
take note of that. But as we wrap up, we're now in the part that it's called fast talk. It's like our signature wrap up ending. You'll only have to answer with one word or one line. So here's the fast talk session. What's one thing that's still on your bucket list? Because that's
My active lifestyle village.
most underrated country you've ever worked in.
Underrated.
Yes,
I think Philippines.
Philippines. One habit that's helped you stay grounded.
My wife.
Your biggest professional failure and what it taught you.
Not yet having done enough.
Oh wow, you feel like you have the
I still want to do things.
that's the hunger, and that's great. What does "don't stop believing" mean to you now today?
It's just it's an ethos. Yeah. If you think you can do something, you can do it. I mean, really, you know, you don't want to be surrounded by there's negative waves. Yeah. So it's an ethos. Do it. If you think you can do it, do it.
Amazing.
It's like Nike. Just do it.
Just do it. Exactly, just Nike. One thing people should stop doing in their 40s.
Stop doing.
Stop doing in 40s.
Thinking they haven't been successful enough.
The truth about recovery that no one tells you.
It's in your head.
The next story you're excited to tell.
Oh, I'd like to do a follow on. I'd like to actually write the story of my younger days, and I've actually been gathering information for that, for when I was growing up, sort of from from birth virtually to when I left UK, and there's a whole bunch of information that I've been collecting. Sorry, it was more than one line. To write
But it's okay.
to write the story of how I got here, if you like.
Oh, okay. Now, it doesn't have to be a one line only. Now, this is the closing question. If this is the conversation, it's the one thing ever someone hears from you, what do you hope it teaches them?
I think if they can get something out of my conversation that makes them feel somehow inspired to do something, and that they believe what I'm telling them, yeah. Um, it's like I'm not a good used car salesman. I can't sell somebody a piece of junk, but I can make a good pitch for something that's worthwhile doing. And if people can believe in that and believe in themselves and get on board with whatever we're trying to do together, um, that's what I'd like to give them.
You are an inspiration, Trevor. I'm so glad to have this conversation with you today. And thank you for sharing your story with the Louder podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else would you like to say?
Thank you very much for making me now a real person. As I said at the beginning, it's great to be here, and I hope this conversation can help anyone that's listening to it. And if they want to talk to me about anything, sometimes people have mental problems, sometimes people have physical problems. They're very happy if you can leave some sort of link. I'm very happy to talk to people and help them. I like helping people.
Where can they reach you?
They can reach me through email, through WhatsApp, however they want. It's
All right.
easy. On Facebook, whatever.
Would you mind sharing your email address that they can easily reach?
Okay, yeah, it's tstottbriggs@gmail.com. Basically, it's my name.
Okay.
T for Trevor,
And
tstottbriggs@gmail.com.
this is available on Amazon.
Yep.
I feel that this is something that every person should read, especially those who feel like giving up.
Don't give up.
Like
Don't give up.
his his story is such an amazing story. Like reminds me that if he's faced this hardship and did not give up, those who feel like giving up just because of something small in life that has happened to them, you are truly like the epitome of like not believe, never stop believing.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay,
Trevor.
and thank you to everybody who's listening.